Alright, so all the movies and all the events in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have been building up to this clash between Earth's superhuman population and the Mad Titan Thanos over an object called the Infinity Gauntlet. It's basically a big golden glove with powerful gems called the Infinity Stone set in it. Seems pretty straightforward, but I've seen a lot of people having questions regarding exactly what the Infinity Stones are, how they came about, and what the deal is with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like, why was it a thing, where did it come from, all that good stuff. So let's take a look and find out. So the objects that MCU fans know as the Infinity Stones, or what comic book fans know as the Infinity Gems, actually first appeared under the name Soul Gems back in 1972 in the pages of Marvel Premiere issue number 1, where the High Evolutionary gave one of the gems, the actual Soul Gem, to the being known as him, who in this story started going by the name Warlock. All 6 gems didn't actually appear together until the story featured in the Avengers Annual issue number 7 and Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 2 back in 1977, when Thanos tried to use them to extinguish all the stars in the universe and was stopped by Warlock and the Avengers. It wasn't until the events of Thanos Quest in 1990 that Thanos realized exactly what the gems could do and set about regaining all of them from the Elders of the Universe, including the Runner, the Champion, the Gardener, the Collector, and the Grandmaster, and the being known as the In-Betweener, with the purpose of extinguishing half of the life in all the universe. It was also during this time that the gems were renamed from Soul Gems to Infinity Gems by Thanos, with the reasoning that not all of the gems affect the soul, so they needed a different collective name. He eventually succeeds in getting the gems back, resulting in him attaching all of them to one of his gloves and kickstarting the events of the Infinity Gauntlet story. Now basically, the gems represent 6 different characteristics of reality, where if you possess the gem, you control that aspect of the universe. In the comics, these things control power, reality, the mind, the soul, time, and space. The power gem grants you access to all the power and energy in existence and can boost the effects of the other gems. The reality gem can manipulate reality, even if the result won't make any logical sense. And with the other gems, it can allow the owner of the gems to affect reality throughout the entire universe. The mind gem can either give you telepathic or telekinetic abilities or amplify already existing mental powers, and so long as you have the other gems, you can link the owner of the gem with all the other minds in the universe at once. The soul gem can manipulate and control every soul in the universe, and also has a sentient desire to collect more souls for itself. The time gem lets you have total control over all of time, lets you see possible futures, time travel, and, if you have the other gems, allows you to exist at all points in time simultaneously. And the space gem lets you manipulate space, allowing teleportation, increasing speed, or, provided you have the other gems, allows you to be everywhere in the universe at once. Now, as you might have guessed, holding all of them basically turns you into a godlike being that can shape anything and everything as you please, which is why it was such a huge deal for a murderous, death-worshipping, insane alien like Thanos to have all of them in the Infinity Gauntlet story. The power of all the gems exceeds that of pretty much every being in the Marvel Universe, with the exceptions of the Living Tribunal and the One Above All. There's also been a couple other gems that haven't really been used outside of like one-shot appearances or alternate universe crossover stories, like Deadpool's Continuity Gem, which featured in Deadpool issue number 27, or the Ego Gem from the Ultraverse crossover back in the 90s, but most people tend to forget about those because they really aren't as important. Speaking of the Ego Gem, in the comics, it turns out that the Infinity Gems were actually originally part of a godlike being called Nemesis. Nemesis was actually one of the first things in the universe, eventually getting lonely because nobody else was around yet, and it decided to just explode rather than continue on being the only thing out there. Its remains eventually turned into what we know now as the Infinity Gems. Now, the movie versions of the gems are pretty much exactly the same, but they have a few differences. For one thing, their origin is a lot simpler, in that rather than being the remains of some ultra-powerful being, the Infinity Stones are actually the remains of 6 condensed singularities in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that the Celestials used to obtain a large amount of power and destroy planets.
There's a little pee coming out of me right now.
At some point, the stones eventually fell into the control of a number of different entities, like the Asgardians,
The Tesseract was the jewel of Odin's treasure room.
the Dark Elves,
Their leader Malekith made a weapon out of that darkness, and it was called the Ether.
whatever civilization this was, and the sorcerer Agamotto on Earth. There's also different colors for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why. The Power Stone is purple, the Reality Stone is red, the Mind Stone is yellow, the Soul Stone is probably going to be orange, the Time Stone is green, and the Space Stone is blue. The Infinity Stones also tend to obliterate anybody who touches them. unless that one person is super powerful, or if that one person is able to share the immense power within a group. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Unlike the regular 616 Infinity Gems, where they're just usually out and about for anybody to see, the MCU's Infinity Stones also tend to hide out in a number of other artifacts, like the Space Stone being stored inside the Tesseract, the Time Stone working as a part of the Eye of Agamotto, etc. Now, even though these things sound all powerful, it turns out they actually have some pretty big weaknesses. We've seen a couple of times in the comics that the gems can actually shatter if they encounter something ultra powerful, like when the time-traveling Wolverine breaks time in the multiverse during the 2013 Age of Ultron storyline, causing the gems of the Ultimate Universe to shatter, or when Captain America pushes back another Earth during an incursion, causing all but the time gem to shatter. Another problem with them is that they can't really work outside of their native universe, as pointed out in the Avengers JLA crossover storyline. During that crossover, a few powerful objects from the Marvel and DC universes, like the Wand of Watum, the Casket of Ancient Winters, the Medusa Mask, the Book of Eternity, were scattered, with the Justice League and the Avengers racing to gather as many of them as they could. Both teams eventually find the Infinity Gauntlet in the possession of DC's Darkseid, who tried using the gauntlet but notices that it doesn't work. His underlings pointed out that while the gems do still have power no matter where in the Omniverse they end up, they won't work unless they're in the original universe. This was also a point in the battle against God Emperor Doom in 2015's Secret Wars issue number 6, when Doctor Strange mentions that he made sure to include an Infinity Gauntlet under Doom's castle that was native to that specific portion of Battleworld. It's also important to remember that there's a pretty steep learning curve with this gauntlet. Like, you don't just pick it up and get to use it without any problems. As we saw in the Infinity Gauntlet story, going from your average self to suddenly having infinite amounts of power can leave anybody wearing the gauntlet confused and disoriented, to the point where it's actually possible to defeat that person, no matter how much power they have. It would still take a lot of work and power, but it's technically possible, at least according to the cosmic beings who fought Nebula when she took control of the gauntlet. That having been said, the Infinity Gems / stones are immensely powerful objects, and anybody in possession of them isn't somebody you want to take lightly. Now, hopefully the MCU Infinity Gauntlet can carry over some of that same level of power. But if not, hey, at least the comics showed us how dangerous something like that could be. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to click that like button, maybe leave me a comment while you're at it, and go ahead and click that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out any of my social media pages. I've got a Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. All those links are going to be in the description below. And I've also got my last video right there in the middle of your screen, so if you want to check that out, go ahead and click it, check it out. Alright, and I will see you all next time.